Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th of 2020. Cindy Drozda from Erie, Colorado is our reader today. Cindy, what's our first question?
Our first question today is from Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California. Would this be a good way to mic an orchestra? For a 48-channel orchestra channel list, see about 24 DPA 4099s, Y-corded in pairs from second desk onwards. It was suggested to us as a standard that anyone uses all the time. Seems wrong somehow. Advice?
Well, thankfully, it is audio day, and we have our audio gurus here, and Jeff Francis is going to dive into this one for us. Jeff, dive in.
That seems very wrong to me as well. That screams against everything that I know about connecting things. So we oftentimes split outputs with Y cables, one output feeding two inputs. But two outputs feeding one input is the purpose of a mixer. And it's all about impedance, and it's all about the way impedances are set up in a thing called bridging mode, which is what we do for all audio that is not getting work done, so not speakers and headphones. So when we're connecting microphones to mic preamps, we have low output impedances and high input impedances, so about a 10-to-1 ratio. So microphone, I looked up the DPA 4099, which is a clip-on condenser mic, and it's about 100 ohm output, so it'll go into a mic preamp that is 1,000 ohms. Problem is, when you connect two of them into the same preamp, one microphone is going to the output of the other microphone because they're wired together. So that's a problem because now you've dropped the destination impedance all the way down to 100 ohms. So you're going to lose level. You have the problem of phantom power trying to feed two microphones. And this comes out of the world of people used to do this all the time with SM57s. If you didn't have enough tom channels, you would wire your two rack toms together. SM57, that, again, it's illegal. The audio police are not going to come, give you a citation.
No,
but
I want that.
But it's not proper electrical configuration with impedance. But with SM57s, considering they have a built-in transformer, it works fine, especially if we're talking about tom channels. Would I do this with 24 DPA 4099s? No, I would not. Get a bigger mixer, get more mic preamps, rent another Rio rack to put onto your Yamaha mixer and handle things there. Even if you have to go to a orchestra string sub-mixer, if you need a separate mixer to mix down your string sections, do that and then feed that into your main mixer.
I don't think I've reached for a Y cable in seems like a long time now. You're audio professionals, and particularly people on our panel like Jeff, who do this all the time. I'm sure there's a place for them, but boy, in my first few years, I remember having a lot of Y cables and abusing them horrible, and I had to learn. Anyway, next question.
David Brady is up next in New York, New York. Apple TV Audio Anomaly. I've noticed in recent days that my Apple TV 2015 model will randomly pitch shift up a semitone, I think, system noises, the boops and beeps of navigation, as well as content until I restart. What's the reason?
Jeff Cohen's going to start us off with this. Jeff?
Now, these are guesses. The first thing that comes to mind, and I'm remembering the settings. Now, I don't know if this specifically applies to that model, but there is this setting for reduce loud sounds. And depending on where you think that was set, so you may want to check if that setting even exists on that model and what that is set to. The navigation clicks, it's either on or off, but also checking the updates. And again, I don't even think this applies to this model, but there hasn't been an update to tvOS since February 11th. So nothing should have officially changed recently. So now, also, what else is it going through? Is it going through any other processors that maybe have changed settings on that end? Or is it you?
Jeff Francis, what are your thinkings like? That was a terrible sentence.
When I hear pitch shift up a semitone, and usually I would say actually a full step, that to me is a sample rate mismatch. 44.1, something that's supposed to be 44.1 playing at 48. I don't know with Apple TV if that's even a possibility here, but that's the first thing that rang in my brain when things were pitch shifted to semitone.
Interesting. Courtney Gooden, thoughts?
Also just a guess, but frequently I hear pitch, not necessarily pitch shifts, but changes in the dialogue and signal levels when things kick into Dolby and surround. And so if the signal coming in suddenly goes from 2-channel PCM into 5.1, it can change the matrix, the routing matrix that synthesizes those 5 channels. And if you have a sound bar or something that it's feeding into, or your television speakers, maybe switching modes between 2-channel PCM and 5.1 or 7.1. And so it's routing that audio to different speakers. And so it could sound like it's a pitch shift, but it could just be a difference in the encoder popping around between a stereo encode, a surround sound, and normal.
Jeff Cohen wants to get back in on this. Jeff?
Well, and I'll just kind of reiterate, because obviously, or presumably, David has had this for quite some time. It's the 2015 model. So it certainly sounds like the way the question is written that it implies this is something new that is different. So something has changed. A lot of those things very well may be true, but something would have had to have changed in the audio pipeline. Again, maybe a new piece of gear or something to introduce a new problem.
And I'm just going to say congratulations, David. You're listening closely enough to detect a standard system thing that might be a semitone off. You're listening more carefully than I tend to. So congratulations on having good hearing still. Next question.
Panelist Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida, is asking for recommendations for wireless earbuds with fins or wingtips like these Power Beats, with a link.
Jeff Cohen, what say you?
Well, so I don't know if anyone does, but I'll just throw up on screen here. I have one ear that could be Apple certified. Everything, AirPods or anything else stays in perfectly. And then one ear that is completely non-compliant, would have failed the assembly line, would have been thrown into the discount bin. Nothing stays in, and ear hooks don't work well because it pops out, and it's why I have to have these in-ears with custom molds so that they can stay in. But then putting a custom mold on an earbud, it will never go back into the case. So I've tried lots of options and curious if anyone has some recommendations for something like this, not necessarily the Power Beats, but something like these little gizmos, fins also to help them stay in.
Courtney Gooden, your thoughts?
I'm just looking at those, and are those little fins aren't they on the outside that fit? So the rubber thing fits in your ear canal, and the
yes, so the ear tip goes into the ear canal, and that little hook goes into the one of those little grooves there. In the, I don't even know what you call that part of the
external
pinna,
auditory meatus.
Pinna. Let's
all right.
Medical terms here, please. Pinna.
Yeah.
It's the one of them folds in your ear flaps. I thought it might be a microphone on that little boom arm, and so I was going to suggest the Pixel Pros, which have noise canceling mics that are kind of built into the little red thing, and you get them in normal black or different colors as well. But if you need it to hold it in your ear, this one, this does have this little fin on it here that does kind of keep it back into your ear. So you might look at the Google earbuds, and they have noise canceling because I have 2 microphones and kind of an array, a steered array there to give you a little noise cancellation and directionality. But so that's my only suggestion. I don't own a pair of those Pixel Buds, but they were on my purchase list recently. So I'm
going to weigh in on this because I have been swimming a lot the last 6 months for health reasons, and I love swimming. But every set of earplugs that I get for swimming, the kind that close off your ear canal entirely, have those little loopy things on them. I haven't been able to find a pair that don't. And I found that, first of all, they're based on which side ear it is. So I have to pay attention to, oh, this is the left one or this is the right one. But once you tuck it into that little fold there, it tends to not only hold it in place, but it's really a whole lot easier to get them out because you grab that little tail piece to pull it out of there. I don't know if they're trying to get to the same place, and I don't know, but fins or wingtips, in my experience, do make a more secure fitting if they work with your ear. My ears must be reasonably normal because I can use the AirPod Pros from Apple without really changing the tips or anything, and they fit me well. I've listened to so many people complaining that it does not work that way for them, so I think we're in the realm of everybody's ears are different. But I've become a believer because of my swimming experiences in those little extra hold it in the ear things. Jeff Cohen, do you want to get back in on this?
Yeah, David Brady obviously is able to hear us at least, so everything isn't completely gone, but he made a good recommendation, and it is something I've considered. So Shocks and others make these little clip-on things. They're like a bigger version of clip-on earrings that they're like a clamp. They just seem like they would be very uncomfortable, which is why I haven't tried it yet. And I appreciate the recommendation. It's something that I might have to resort to.
There you go. Hopefully, come back and tell us next week whether or not you found the solution for everybody. Let's go to our next question.
Next up, we have Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. ZoomISO version 3 is coming soon. Has anyone done any research on this yet? Andy posted this link on LinkedIn yesterday.
I have not heard nor seen it in the wild yet, but I have great faith in Zoom engineering. So, Andy, I'm sure will be around at some point. And I don't actually have my monitor. So everybody keep your eyes on the Mukana chat and see if maybe Andy weighs in on what's going on there. But at this point, I don't think we have anybody on the panel that paid attention enough to yesterday's announcement to be conversant in it this morning. So if we hear something later, we will interrupt and get back to it. Next question. Whoops, you're muted, Cindy, on Zoom.
Goodness, my mute switch didn't work. Sorry about that. This one is from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I'm currently using a Rode Wireless Go 2 with a Sennheiser HSP4-EW3 headworn mic. I'm looking for recommendations for an upgrade, and I'm considering a Sennheiser EW-DP ME4 wireless transmitter receiver and a Focusrite Scarlet 2i2 Gen 4.
None of our audio experts have raised a hand on this one, but this is finding microphone systems that work for you. Particularly, there's tens of thousands of microphones out there. Headworn is a slightly more direct category. I've had good luck in headworn stuff with the Countryman stuff. I think DPA makes a lot of really good ones. Those both tend to be pretty expensive. So Courtney Gooden's going to weigh in on this. Courtney?
Yeah, you're changing your transmitter. I assume you're going to want to keep your headworn mic the same. So the Sennheiser headworn mic should work well into the EW-DP ME4, which is a UHF. I think it's a digital version of their UHFs. I think they're in, maybe I may be wrong. They may have changed. The EW series used to be in the 400 megahertz range, but maybe they've switched up to the 2.4 gigahertz range to transmit digital signals. So I'm not sure in my response because I haven't looked at the D series of EW microphones from Sennheiser, but it might be a little better transmission for you because it does have two antennas to receive on, so it has diversity signal reception on the receiver, and so it should give you less dropouts if you turn your body, put your body between the receiver and the transmitter. It should have a little stronger signal level. The 2.4 gigahertz of the wireless Go 2s tend to They work great if you're close to the receiver, but if you get a lot of stuff between yourself and the receiver, it can drop out.
Cindy Drosy, want to come back in and refine your question?
Yes, just to clarify, I am not looking to replace the microphone. I'm happy with that for now. I'm trying to upgrade from 2.4 gigahertz, perhaps, even though I am not far away from the receiver. And the EW-DP is a digital UHF system. And then adding a audio interface with the Focusrite Scarlet. Just whether this is all a good scene or whether there might be other models that people would recommend.
Jeff Francis is going to give you some really good advice here in a second, but I'm just curious, is it a 3.5 millimeter
Yes.
2-channel or 3-channel connector? Sometimes connectors are the hard thing to kind of make sure that you get something to replace that body pack that receives the mic signal correctly from what you got. But Jeff, dive into it.
Sennheiser has its own proprietary little mic, and
Of course
it's
they
a
do.
3.5 millimeter thing, and it plugs into the Rode. But I'm wondering if perhaps going into a Sennheiser will maybe like that better.
Jeff?
A Sennheiser wireless uses a 3.5 millimeter with a locking. It's got a little screw. You plug it in and then screw it in to lock the connector in. So the Sennheiser to Sennheiser is great. As far as I can see, this is a sort of a portable camera engineering kit where the receiver is in the belt pack form, meaning it needs batteries. I'm wondering if, since you're going into a Scarlet, you want maybe a more robust sort of half rack mount receiver that plugs into the wall, rather than having to burn batteries in both your transmitter and your receiver. And those will probably, you can get something that has a full line output as instead of a mini jack output on the receiver. Mickey did say in the chat,
USB power on it as well. So,
oh, good to know. Yeah, so you're not going to burn batteries there. Mickey did say he doesn't like the series just because of the app you need to configure transmitters. So once you get it configured, you're fine.
All right, well, let's take a look at our next question.
The next one comes in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Where did you learn the most about your audio knowledge from?
School of Hard Knocks for a lot of us. Jeff Cohen, dive in.
I think we swippy swapped.
I read the wrong question from Guy.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Shall we start over again? This is from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. As the Behringer X32 ages out, what would be the modern replacement?
Now Jeff Cohen can weigh in. Jeff?
There's good and bad news. The bad news is I don't have an answer for this question, and I was waiting to see if anyone else did. But what I will say is Guy posted a really cool video on Discord using Claude to connect over an MCP server to his X32, and essentially gave Claude a blog post about setting up the mixer for a particular event or context, and then Claude figured out what to do and actually did it, and super, super cool. So for a variety of reasons. So I encourage anyone to check that out. Otherwise, I have no answer for that.
We have a good list of questions today, but if you'd like to put yours in and have people vote them up and down, you can go to our askofficehours.global site. There's a QR code for it that I just tossed up on screen, or you can just type in askofficehours.global and get to the same place. So if you have questions for our panel today, that's the place to go. Next. Oh, wait, Courtney Gooden raised his hand late on that one. So,
I was just going to suggest the Wing, which is in the Behringer line, but it's, a step up to a little much more feature-rich mixer and more expensive. Not necessarily a rack mount version, but they do make a compact version of it, so you might take a look at the Behringer Wing. Yeah.
There you go. Next question.
This one's from Jim Brooks in New York. What are your thoughts on the Comica WM300 UHF wireless system as an upgrade option from the 2.4 gigahertz wireless mic kits? Thanks.
I've heard the name. I always pronounce it Comica. Comica? I have no idea what is correct, so understand that. It's funny. The less expensive wireless mics have gotten a good bit better, but I'm always careful with anything under. Well, it used to be anything under $1,000, but those were kind of the old days. Now there are some pretty decent systems at less than that, but I kind of look at the price of a wireless system because remember, you're going from the $25 XLR cable, which is perfect and cheap, and unless you've got a real problem, always works, to two transmitters or a transmitter and a receiver and a power supply and all the rest of that. And so when you get into real low prices for all those things, you can get into problems. Jeff Francis may have some actual information here. Jeff, dive in.
Just, I'm going with the same as you, buy once, cry once. Well, this is you're buying the second time because you already have the 2.4 gigahertz. It's like if you're going to upgrade your wireless, go into tried and true professional wireless brands.
Yeah, we have a couple of people in the chat who've pronounce it comical. So I don't know what that means. I don't have a lot of experience with the brand, but I am careful, particularly on wireless sound, because burned into my mind, as most people on this panel and most people in professional audio, sound is not something you want to mess with. If you can get high quality sound, it always makes your production, always makes the work that you're doing better, and it's really worth thinking about. Courtney Gooden, you had a thought?
Yeah, if you're going to move into the UHF area and you have the money, go for electrosonics. That would be one of your best bets. I was looking. I've never used these comical microphones, but I was looking at the price point on them at $260 for two transmitters and a receiver, or $255 on sale here. They do have 4 out of 5 stars, but I'd be kind of very wary about that, about their UHF and how agile they are to switch frequencies in the UHF band, because you have to do that in that band because of television transmission that happens in that area. They have to be fairly agile as far as choosing frequencies. So I'd worry about the Comica just because of its price. Not to say that it's bad that I've used it, but anyway, I'd worry about that. Typically, if you jump up to the electrosonics, you're a factor of 10 times more expensive than that.
Yeah, audio is such a. I'm not going to say persnickety, but you need to be very careful with it, because if audio quality is lousy, no matter how much time and effort you spend on everything else, it's going to kind of drag your final product down. And I think everybody here who's come up through the audio business or has had to rely on this, the biggest challenges I've ever had in my career mostly have been I didn't get the audio right related, and I felt bad about that forever, because something that could have been really good turned out to not be so good. So if you go in this direction, Jim, let us know and come back and tell us how everything works out. But that's a pretty low price for that much hardware, software, and engineering, even with the new digital stuff, which tends to be somewhat better than the old cheap analog gear. Anyway, next question.
Guy Cochran is back with us in Seattle, USA. Who or where did you learn the most about your audio knowledge from?
Jeff Francis. Now, he's a professor in college, so he obviously has had incredibly good teachers along the way. But where'd you start out, and where'd you get most of your audio knowledge from in the early days?
Most of my audio knowledge came from trying to teach. You never have to understand something as well as when you have to try and teach it to someone else. And you never understand the blanks or your assumptions in teaching until you see the blank stares where you what's impedance? What's line level? All those things.
Yeah, I have had a lot of blank stares over the course of my career. Courtney Gooden.
I learned most of my audio chops from self-taught, but I was in radio in the early 60s, and we had an engineer named, cleverly enough, this was his real name, Mike Shields.
He was destined to teach audio.
And he was our RF engineer and had Class 1 licenses with the FCC and knew a great deal about audio. In fact, he was one of the patent holders on the SQ matrix for quadraphonic transmission. So I learned a lot from Mike Shields. And another place I learned a lot is from a book that I got in the 60s. And, you know, you can still find it on eBay, the Audio Cyclopedia from Tremaine. This is this huge book. This is, you can see how thick it is here. Yeah, it has all types of information about analog audio signal processing and the types of, you know, preamps and equations and circuitry. So it's a great resource for audio information. So that's where I learned a lot of it from. But that knowledge has kind of been displaced by digital signal processing, and everything's on a chip and DSP these days. So, yeah. But if you're designing analog circuits, you know, check out the Audio Cyclopedia.
Jeff Cohen.
Two things came to mind. Back in the day, there were all the kind of quote-unquote audiophile magazines, and so that was always a big deal to try and get a hold of them and see what's going on. But the other thing is, I forget, you know, what you would call them, like the I don't know, shows, but like the big sale events that would come to town, like travel from city to city. But it was like the big event. You would go there, and that's where you could get the latest gear, and there were all the vendors there, and you could kind of see things that weren't even in the magazine yet. So that was always a big deal to go to those and see what's going on, and also get gear that wasn't available yet. But of course, the internet really changed all that, especially YouTube. I mean, there's just so much knowledge. The trick, of course, is figuring out what is good information and, you know, what is just nonsense. And also, to Jeff's point, I mean, that's why absolutely teaching, you know, that's why in medicine, it's see one, do one, teach one. And the teach one is where you really show a mastery of topic.
Yeah, I think I'll support all of these things. I agree that the internet has been a blessing and a curse, particularly in its early days as we were all trying to learn stuff. It was just a wild west, and you were as likely to run across half-baked knowledge as you were to get the really serious knowledge. I was lucky. I started out in radio, so there was always engineers who had actually studied this stuff, and if they were giving you a little bit of advice on why things were messing up, they would do it grounded in physics and electronic theory and tell you the truth about things. But a lot of people, as soon as inexpensive gear started showing up and people were just kind of bootstrapping themselves up, which I admire, I think it's a great thing. But I was what I would call a victim of Swiss cheese knowledge. I knew the things that had been given to me by people who really knew what they were going. But as I tried to fill in the knowledge between things, and I went out to read articles or go on the internet and ask people questions, sometimes those holes in my Swiss cheese knowledge did not get filled as appropriately as I would have liked them to. So I made a lot of mistakes in my early days because of that. So good question. Let's go to our next one. Next question.
Here's one from Jim Brooks in New York. It's beyond time to upgrade my Intel-based MacBook Pro because it will not accept Davinci Resolve 20. What is your economic recommendation to run Davinci, Photoshop, and Lightroom? Thanks.
Jeff Cohen's going to weigh in on this. Jeff?
Well, when you ask a conflicting question, which is economic, but then you list some of the most computing intensive tasks that you want to perform, right away I go to the first question I ask everyone, which is, do you actually need it to be a laptop? So those specific tasks are the very ones that tend not to be the things you might do with your heels kicked up in a coffee shop or something like that, where maybe you want a monitor. So you can certainly save a lot of money relative to computing power by getting something like a Mac Mini. Tremendous power, much lower cost. So that's one option. The other option is to kind of mix and match. So perhaps you need a laptop for some tasks that you still can do with it, that. So maybe you still get the portability for those other tasks where you can keep using that one, but also have a Mac Mini in your office desktop environment. The other thing to look at is, I will tell you, I tried and was able to get away with a MacBook Air 15-inch. The monitor is beautiful. It's an M2, and I run the latest Davinci Resolve and all the other things really well. So it's what exactly are you doing, particularly in Davinci, and that will determine just how much computing you need.
Yeah, I'm going to support what he's saying, and he notes in the chat, yes, I need to be on a laptop because of travel. So that's something we're not talking about. I would have gone in the direction that everybody is, which is those Mac Minis are incredibly powerful, but just the change from Intel chipsets into the new M series is going to astonish you no matter where you go in those chips. They are so much more efficient and so much better these days that it is night and day. That's the one thing I would never do, is drop back into the Intel thing. And I think you're right. It's time to get out of that. We're probably pretty close to the end of life for support for all that Intel stuff. Jeff Cohen, you wanted to come back in?
I just wanted to add, so if, for example, you determine, man, I really need a MacBook Pro, for example, or even for that matter, any of the others, keep in mind, they have really generous financing. You can go 12 months, 0 interest to perhaps make a bigger purchase more reasonable.
Okay. Jim, good luck. Next question.
James Fossian from Minneapolis, Minnesota is asking, setting up near field monitors, space has challenges. If one is slightly higher by 2 inches, as long as they are equidistant from ears, am I fine? Also, they are close to rear wall.
Jeff Francis, you want to talk about all the issues of placement of speakers?
So let's take the first one about height. So your acuity, your ability to localize is much better in the horizontal plane because you have ears on the sides of your head. And we use time of arrival and head shadowing and things to localize where our monitors are. Less acuity in the vertical realm. So 2 inches difference for near-field monitors, not a big deal. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's the close to the rear wall that's a big question, and this is about how close are we talking and what frequencies do these monitors go down to. So you're going to get basically the low frequencies off of your monitors are going to come towards you, and they're also going to go back towards the back wall and reflect off of that. I'm going to put a link to a beautiful page that Genelec has about monitor placement. And if we go there and look, you'll see that there is some things about distances and frequency. So we're worried about the wavelengths coming off the back wall. The solution is to get them really close to the back wall, but that depends on whether your monitors are ported in the rear. And that's why we actually do, in big studios, we do baffles. We actually build the monitors into the front wall, and then we get rid of that reflection because they're actually, the front of the monitor is even with the front wall. Obviously, with near fields, that's not something you can do. So take a look at the low frequency range of your monitors. Are you using a subwoofer? Because that then takes the low frequencies and puts them in a different speaker than you're talking about. And then take a look there at their calculations for that quarter wavelength distance to keep those cancellations.
And our audio guru friend, Mickey Makachor, posted in the chat, James, if this is just for casual listening, don't worry about it. If you will be mixing or judging mixes with them, this is not okay. So again, it's a use case and what you're trying to get accomplished here. And Craig Kadoki said, I would be more concerned with what else might be issues in the room layout. So yeah, delicate stuff here. Next question.
Here's another one from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. What are some professional brands of UHF wireless mic systems?
Ooh, there are a lot of them that I've used over the years. I think I started with the Sony gear because I was an ENG camera guy, kind of. That was my practice and field producer. And so I started on the 800 series Sonys. They were solid, rock solid. Electrosonics became huge early in my career, and everybody comfortably went to theirs. There's a lot of good brands. DPA became big. more recently. Courtney Gooden, what do you think? What are some of the things for wireless mics that you like?
Going to concur on the electrosonics, but you're stepping up into a whole different realm of expense here. If you look at some of the electrosonics new 4 channels here for only $13,883. I don't know if that's within your budget. Here's a rebuilt transmitter for $1,579, and that's you're going to be around $2,000 for the transmitter and receiver each. So that's going to be kind of pricey. Also, Zaxcom makes a digital wireless, so check out Zaxcom products. I didn't even get to their right page here, but anyway. But they're more expensive brands of UHF digital wirelesses. But you're stepping in, like I said, into a whole different realm. The Sennheiser's a good media. The EW series, like you were talking about earlier, is a good middle-priced area for UHF wireless. And there's Deity also makes some pretty good ones as well that are in a more reasonably priced area. But typically, professionally, most people use the either the Zaxcom or the Electrosonics.
We thank you for being here for the Daily Show today, but remember we also have evening shows, and tomorrow night it's The Rundown with David Paskin. Most of our evening shows happen at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and there's something going on literally every single day here at the office hours global home office, if you will. So The Rundown, David Paskin hosts the panel, takes a deeper dive into why behind the latest tech's always fun. I've been on the show a few times. In fact, I was there last week, and I just had a great time. So we did a lot more discussion of the how and why and think about the way media is affecting the world out there at large. It's a lot of fun. So tune in if you have a chance. Next question.
Next up is Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas, asking, for a crowded festival needing background music and announcements, what speakers would you recommend, and how would you rig them for even dispersion and safety given heavy foot traffic, including a potential solution link?
Okay, so concert sound is its own individual thing, and I'm really happy that Jeff Francis just raised his hand because he knows 87,000 times more about this than I do, and he's going to help us out. Jeff?
And I have 87,000 questions for Jeff Veely, because and I'm assuming this is not a music festival. This may be some other kind of, food festival or something like that, because they need background music. There may be stages around, but this is not a music festival, and they need background music and announcements. First question would be, is this in a place where there are already sort of established poles? Are there telephone poles, light poles? Is this on city streets, or is this in a big empty field? Because you want to get height to get up above the crowd to get dispersion. And this product that he links looks like a great solution because it's battery-powered speakers that all talk to each other, so it distributes the signal out amongst all those. And I'm sure there are competing companies. This is not a place I've ever delved into. So I would look for someone who's done this, an established vendor that's done this kind of thing, and look at their recommendations. But height is your friend for dispersion, getting up above people. Safety is either something that is already established that can hold the weight safely, or you need, crank genie lifts with barricades around them. So you're looking at taking out space in your festival to put these towers up.
Yeah, in the old days, large gatherings and things like that were always something that you had to have a pretty good engineer, because particularly if you had somebody on a podium or stage up front and they were speaking and they had speakers next to them, the delays in a big area can be a nightmare without delay setting for the speakers in the back. But it sounds like in this era of wireless, if you can get the signal at the same time coherently to all the speakers in there, that's going to go away, and that'll make things a lot easier. So just make sure that that whatever system you have deals with those things, like the time delay of audio traveling from one area to another, because things can get unintelligible if you are dealing with those big delays in an environment. Courtney, you wanted to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, you could be looking, if you're just looking for paging and maybe background music or something, but you're not, fidelity isn't your main issue there. You remember this main character from MASH? Yeah. So attention MASH people, they'd have the announcements.
Folded horns.
Character. But yes, I was thinking maybe a 70-volt system that is designed as a PA system that uses 70-volt transformers on the speakers. That way you can go speaker to speaker and you don't have to worry about powering each speaker separately rather than having separate powered speakers. And you can use 70-volt system. You can chain several speakers together on a single line because the transformers are on the speakers themselves. And they're useful for PA, for driving PA. And some of them even are two-way so that you can actually hear people talking into the speakers like an intercom as well. So there are a number of manufacturers of PA-type systems that are designed for Muzak and PA announcements that are 70-volt systems, so you might look into those.
Jeff Francis wants to come back in. Jeff.
So Jeff Veely put some info in the chat. He says this is not concert sound, just background music and announcement. The music stages have their own PA systems, their own sound. And he did give a link to a picture that is a downtown city square. So there are, traffic light poles and those kind of things. So now you need to start talking with the city and public safety about the possibility of using those poles. And again, I think that the systems that are battery powered and wireless are going to be very helpful for you because Courtney's system of 70 volts is great if you have a place to string the cables. If you're having to go down the pole and then go up the sidewalk to the next pole and then up the pole, now you've got to have cable troughs for all of that for people walking, the large crowds you have in this festival.
Yeah, the one other thing I'm going to mention, having done a lot of events over the course, not a lot, but I used to be the chair of a charity that had a big festival every year. Safety, safety, safety. If you've got public out there, make sure you're rigging. If you're putting things on light poles and things like that, do not skimp. The fire marshal will make sure, or whoever's the safety officers involved in that. But the last thing you want is something coming off a pole and falling on somebody's head. There will be a huge lawsuit, and they love being able to try to tap into the municipal coffers with a lawsuit. So super, super safe in terms of your mounting and everything else that goes on with that. Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, I usually fly cables that are going to poles and towers if you can, especially in a festival, to keep it off the ground like Jeff was saying. If you can fly them, and you have to, of course, take that into consideration when you're buying your cable, it has to have maybe some stainless steel strain relief wire inside that cable so that you can string it over long distances without the weight of the cable itself distressing the copper leads that are inside there. So take that into consideration if you're ordering cable and you're going to fly it over long distances by pulling it up. As long as you can get in there before the crowd gets in there, you can fly those cables and keep it out of the foot traffic. And it's also more direct point-to-point wire.
And Chris Sabato in the chat noted the Anchor brand, particularly the Liberty series. They're a PA company that I had some experience with, and they're not full range, but they're really good in terms of getting a sharply defined voice out there. And for just quiet background music or something, for the overall vibe of the place, they work just fine. So that's another brand that I've seen for a long time out there. Let's go to our next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida, and on today's panel is asking thoughts on Curtis Judd's video. Running a video production gear review channel in 2026 is less and less tenable. Gear, for the most part, has sort of plateaued, and he includes a YouTube link.
That's an interesting thesis. Jeff Cohen, how do you feel about this?
Well, this was unfortunate to kind of see and hear him being candid, with Guy's other question about where do you learn? I think Curtis Judd is a good source of a lot of good information. He also has training, gear review, and so he's kind of talking about the state of things, and he shows a little bit. I'll show kind of where things started. So he's comparing it to when he started, I think he said around 2013. So essentially his point is, then that was really kind of the boom of things really getting much more attainable, but still the gear wasn't great. You really had to make some smart decisions. You really had to know what you were doing to get the gear at the time to work well, to look good. We're talking about video, to sound good when we're talking about audio. And cut to now, and again, from his take, there's a lot of really good, gear. And most people have a lot of good gear. So people don't have the need that they did at the time. It's not revolutionary. It's kind of plateaued. So you're not getting huge monumental jumps and differences. He also points out, by the way, that his educational videos do far less well in terms of performance than gear reviews, but even that, again, as he points out, is less tenable. It's an interesting theory, by the way. We've talked about, and I've, mentioned the lowering of the bar, which I don't know if he considered or thought about. We joke about people going out with those little, using wireless lavalier mics as handheld mics to stick in front of their, interview guests that they're interviewing kind of out and about. But you can get one of those little mics and a phone and go out and do a field interview. And then when the people ignorance is bliss, they run it through various AI video and audio processing, and they have a good enough. So I wonder if it's not also that has caused a decline in the interest. People don't care. I'm talking about those folks like content creators, YouTubers, those kind of folks that it doesn't even occur to them to need any kind of fancy gear other than what they see other YouTubers using, which is a phone and sticking a wireless lavalier mic in someone's face.
Jeff Francis, your thoughts?
My thoughts, this made me think about a thing that I talked about with my students the other day, where I asked the question, when did technology peak? Because I remember thinking, that technology peaked for me somewhere around like 1991, and it stayed peaked for a long time. And maybe the release of the iPhone changed that. But my students were like, BlackBerry. That was the peak of technology. They're like, smartphone, no. And I was like, you can choose not to use that. He's like, no, they've got me. He's like, I've got brain rot. I can't put this thing down. He knows he wants to go back to something that's simple and text and communication. But this is a different thought than the question here, Jeff. But has technology peaked in some ways? And are we waiting for the next breakthrough? Or do we need to just go back and touch grass and live on a farm?
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I think it happened with the democratization of audio and visual production. When prices on equipment went from the $1,000 to $2,000 area to the $100 or $200 area, that's where you found a wide democratization of the tools that are being used for all these YouTube creators. Also, we went from professional creators who use professional cameras, professional audio video gear, and so instruction for that kind of information was pretty valuable. But now everybody's a creator. Now that everybody with a phone can be a creator with the digital signal processing and the cameras that are, the little chip camera that's built into a phone can rival a lot of the analog cameras we were using 10 or 15 years ago. You don't need to know that much about it. Everything is point and shoot or plug and play. And the use of the equipment is handled a lot by the equipment itself these days. It's noise canceling and auto leveling and automatic gain control and auto iris, and every type of amenity is now built into the digital signal processing of the signal these days. So learning as much as you can about the process of lighting and how to set f-stops and the correct light balances to key and fill balance, all that kind of stuff has really gone by the wayside. You just open the app and you click on a button that says "Make me look better." So that democracy, and there are actually those buttons. It's right built into Zoom. Make my appearance better. That has caused the educational channels to be a little less valuable because of that democratization and automation of signal processing these days. So I feel for you, Curtis, because I really like your channel, and I think you do a great service of comparing professional products when they come out, and a good deep dive on each of those products with your own opinion, as well as presenting the audio in a form, audio and video, in a form that can be evaluated by the people watching the videos.
I've been thinking a lot about the word glut, because I think there's a glut of so many things, and it's messing up a lot of the processes that we used to depend on a lot. I see, and I think in the creator class, particularly the ones with a known brand, it just seems like they're all really grumpy right now. And what came across my feed, the Professor of Rock guy who goes like back to old pop music and talks about where it came from. He's been really grumpy lately on all the feeds. And I just think it's harder and harder and harder. And I think it's this glut idea. You're right. Everybody with a phone is suddenly a creator. And you get out there and there's not one voice, there's 150,000 voices trying to give you advice on the internet. Everybody who's been downsized from their corporate job or something and is having trouble finding it says, well, I've got an iPhone and I've got a few things here, so I'll just set up a channel and see if I can compete in that space. And it's crazy. We put out occasional calls for voice actors for the big projects that I'm working on. We'll get 1,000 responses in the first 2 hours. And then it just keeps going up from there because everybody in the world with a microphone and access to that particular website will say, I'll give a shot at that, whether or not they're really qualified or not. And it's just, to me, that's glut. And we're in the world. And then you add AI generative stuff on top of that, adding auto glut, where there's no human being behind it. It's just got some kind of algorithm that says, if there's an opportunity to get $1 out of this, let my bots go try to farm that $1 out of this. And I don't care who I'm competing with. It costs me nothing other than the stuff I'm already paying for my internet account to go out and try to suck up those gigs as well. It's just really a difficult time right now. I don't know the answer to this, but I do see a lot of the old-time creators getting pretty crabby about the fact that it's not the way it used to be. But that's the history of the human race. It's never the way it used to be when things change. Let's go to our next question.
This one comes to us from Norm Clare in Waterloo, Ontario. Has anyone had experience embedding 5.1 surround audio channels into a live stream encoder? Is MADI/DANTE embedding to SDI the best way to go?
We used to talk about this a good little bit. Alex Lindsay, the creator of this show, and who had to leave us because of a gig he got in a non-compete clause, used to talk endlessly about live stream encoding and trying to extend the quality and the reach of that live streaming into things like 5.1 and 7.1 and all the new ways. We don't talk about it as much anymore because it's still pretty complicated. But I do know that in the big companies, they are still working on multi-channel live streaming. So I think there's going to be news coming out. I don't know anything particular, but I think there's a lot of energy still being put into that area. So hopefully come back a different day and we'll see. Nobody on this particular panel, I think, follows that close enough to have an opinion on that. So Norm, when you find out more things, come back next Wednesday and tell us about what you've discovered. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington is asking, did Rode just turn the RODEcaster into a control surface for video switching?
Courtney, you keep track of these. Did you? Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, well, they came out with a new product. They came out with the RODEcaster Video S, which is what I'm coming to you on right now, which is their competition to the A10 Mini Pro that does, Super Source and three HDMI videos on the smaller one. Well, they've come out with a new product called the Core, which is exactly like the RODEcaster Video S, but only has one knob and no buttons on it. It has exactly the same inputs and outputs on the back as the RODEcaster Video S does, but you control it by plugging it in over a simple USB-C cable to your RODEcaster Pro audio mixer, which I also have one, but it's sitting on the shelf over there. So once you do that, you then can control the inputs to the video with the pads, the little touch pads over here that you use to control for setting audio, signal processing. You could make the microphone sound funny, or you could play back audio clips, etc. off these touch pads. Well, now these touch pads on their audio digital mixer can now be purposed to be video switchers using the Core as kind of a rack mount or a separate interface to your video. So yes, in a way they have turned the RODEcaster Pro 2 into a video switcher, and they've changed the software that you use to interface those two things together, which is the same. Their video switcher software that works with the Video S now can be set up to control all the video from the audio switcher, the audio mixer itself.
Let's go to our last question.
This one is from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. Anyone going to order a new toy? What might you use it for?
And they are, of course, talking about the just recently released Apple MacBook Neo, which has been flooding opinions on this unit have been flooding all of my feeds everywhere for the past 2 or 3 days, particularly from people who don't yet have them. So I'm always interested in that. But everybody has an opinion, and Jeff Francis, our friend, does. So, Jeff, what do you think?
I don't have one. I don't have one arriving today, which is when they start arriving. But I'm intrigued. Education price is $499, amazing. And for the majority, even us professionals, we spend a lot of time on a computer doing things that don't require big processors. The percent of my time that is actual video editing, audio editing, there's other stuff we all have to do email. If you're doing Keynote and those kind of things, there's a lot of lightweight use. So, this is a glorified iPad with a built-in keyboard, and I'm always using the keyboard on my iPad. It's not touchscreen, but that's okay. It's a computer. And so, this is an inexpensive computer that runs Mac OS. I'm super intrigued by that option, that Mac has finally gone the other direction, as opposed to, if you look at a MacBook Pro and you want to get a good new MacBook Pro, you're over $3,000, maybe more if you start putting large storage and large RAM into that. So how many of these can you outfit that do one task? So it's awesome. It's not everything. It's not trying to be everything. It's not a production machine, but it could be a side production machine. This could be your notes. Those kind of things.
Courtney Gooden, your thoughts?
Well, my question, Jeff, are you going to, or for Neo, are you going to go with the blue pill or the pink pill, or maybe the yellow pill?
I'm hearing that yellow is very popular.
Citrus and blush. That is not pink.
Citrus. I think it's pink. They should have called it the Barbie pill, the Barbie laptop. Yeah.
You laugh, but I'm never going to forget when my wife got her hands on her first iPad. She was entranced, and it was back in the early days, and she hadn't had anything like that, and she absolutely adored that. And so for those young students, the young men and women going off to school, to college, or to high school, or whatever, for their first computer, I think this thing is going to be popular as hotcakes out there. Jeff Francis, you're thinking?
I'm wondering if people have seen Apple kind of teased it on TikTok, the little Finder guy, as he's been dubbed, which is the animation of the Finder face. I'll put a link here in the show notes to someone that blogged about it. Just adorable. So I think it's great that Apple is having some fun with computers again. You know, Blush and Citrus and all those kind of things.
It's also probably a long-term play. If you can get the younger kids, and this is their first experience, they're going to get into the Apple OS system, which has been remarkably consistent. Yes, it's grown a ton since the early days, but the basic look and feel of iOS, they're used to that. A lot of people are coming from phones, so they're used to iOS. And this runs on basically, this little laptop has an iOS kind of processor. It has a mobile processor in it, but one that's powerful enough. And, you know, we're all so addicted to our phones that OS idea, the touchscreen and the rest of that is big. This is a step up from people who are iPhone users, is probably going to be hugely attractive to a lot of people. I just think this is a really fascinating thing. I think Apple also looks out there and goes, the economy is very bifurcated, and there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of money out there chasing things that help them get their life in order, and this may end up being one of them. Who knows? Jeff Cohen, I'm going to let you have the last word here.
So I'll be the contrarian and jump in and say the reason Apple has not wanted to play around in that lower price tier is because, first and foremost, they don't want you to have a negative or poor experience with the gear. So if you get something like this, back to, for instance, Jim's question, and then you try and fire up Davinci Resolve, I mean, you'll be able to open it, and depending on what you're doing, you may be able to do things. But, you know, time is money. How long will it take when you actually hit that render button to get your project? And, you know, if they ever figure out AI, you know, thanks to Google, and, you know, their big push, unlike their competition, is on-device AI, machine learning, all that good stuff. So, you know, and I always forget the name of the new creative subscription suite, but, you know, if you're going to be running those, they brag about upcoming Apple Intelligence embedded into each of those products. So we're really going to be pushing the envelope more and more for on-device processing behind the scenes, so you won't see or even perhaps know why your machine is running so slowly because you're asking it to do all these things. So, hey, for the student, you know, where they're absolutely aware of the price point restrictions and they accept a slower machine, great. In the professional production world where time literally is money, I would caution away from this. And again, perhaps even if you need to do something like, I like to future-proof and get higher capacity machines, even if you have to do the 12-month financing or something and earn money with it.
I'm going to let Guy Cochran in the chat have the last word. He noted 1080p front camera. We used to pay $300 for a Brio, and now for $199 more, you can get the whole shebang with mics, speakers, and oh yeah, a computer faster than an M1 MacBook Air. So we're going to let the market figure this out. They will definitely. We'll see what the sales numbers come out to be. Stand by. Hey, thank you for being here and watching Office Hours as always. We couldn't do this without you, our producers, those who put the questions in the show and vote those questions up. And thank you for doing that. For the panelists who come and freely share their expertise, decades and decades and decades of expertise, and come and just give it away for free on the air every day. And we appreciate you tremendously. And to the panelists and to our back-end crew, that's who I wanted to thank, because always the quality, the kindness, the absolute joy to be able to come into the back room here every day and see old friends who have been doing this for a long time and catch up with them is just a joy every day. The Tlaloc Traversal, that's always difficult to say in the first thing in the morning. Today for episode 2178 was 23,000 miles. That's 37,000 kilometers, or 183 million bananas for scale. That takes care of our show today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. I wonder how much Apple is going to erode their profit margin with that.
They won't, because their storage is significantly slower on the cheaper MacBooks.
It's basically a phone and a laptop case.
No, the new phones are faster.
I wonder if a lot of people are going to buy 2 or 3 for their houses, I suspect.
It's the 16s chipset running a more extensive operating system. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll see.
I think your audio drifted up again.
Mine did, or somebody else's?
Yours. I was looking at the meters when you were talking.
Thank you, Spectrum. Here, maybe it's my upload, maybe it's something else. It's I should go back to what was it? Traceroute I used to use back in my early years to figure out what the signal is